Are reconvened, and it is our next panel. I identified the folks before the break. So, Greg, you want to start?
There we go. First of all, thank you all for having me to testify today and your attention to this important matter. My 5-minute testimony is a summarized version of a longer document that I asked to be submitted for the record for this hearing, if that's all right. I'm Greg Regan, the president of the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. The workers represented by TTD affiliated unions have been sounding the alarm on the state of the freight rail industry for years. It is deeply unfortunate, but also completely predictable that we would find ourselves here today. As both railroad employees and customers sit before you to express a shared, simple fact that today's freight rail network is simply not working for anyone other than railroad investors. We hope that the board embraces this opportunity to put the freight rail industry on a new path. The forces that brought us here today are not the result of the pandemic, the supply chain crunch, or the so-called Great Resignation. Rather, Class I carriers adopted precision-scheduled railroading and shrank the workforce and equipment needed to effectively operate a railroad without care for impacts on service or customers. As Chairman Oberman pointed out, the Class I's collectively have reduced their workforce by 29% over the last 6 years. That is about 45,000 employees cut from payroll. TTD rejects the absurd claim that the loss of 45,000 hardworking employees had no impact on the quality or availability of service. The elimination of jobs across all crafts of the freight rail network has undoubtedly contributed to operational breakdowns and service degradation, including the ability to operate, inspect, maintain, and repair every component of a railroad. Later, a number of railroads will suggest that the entirety of existing service problems can be resolved with a few more engineers and conductors. The railroads will further argue that their inability to properly staff and their train and engine departments is representative of a problem faced by all industries in a tight labor market. Yet the railroads laid off thousands of engineers and conductors over the last few years. In fact, in the 5 years prior to the pandemic, BNSF cut its train and engine workforce by 27%. NS by 24%, UP by 32%, and CSX by a whopping 43%. It is no mystery why the railroads can't provide flexibility or surge capacity right now. They eliminated those employees in the pursuit of an operating ratio and higher profits, and have now been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. There is simply no doubt that the link between service quality, including reliability and frequency, and adequate employment is clear. We've seen this as multiple railroads have flirted with total service meltdowns over the last year. At different times, UP suspended service between the West Coast and its Global 4 gateway in Chicago. BNSF metered service over its LA Long Beach Chicago routes. NS shut down its intermodal traffic through central Pennsylvania. Later, both UP and BNSF would modify service to LA Long Beach yet again. As several others have already said, it is galling that even after the announcement of this hearing, UP informed its customers on April 11th that it would again be metering traffic after April 18th if customers didn't voluntarily reduce their inventory. For as long as the railroads continue down their current path, these meltdowns and service degradation will continue. It is for these reasons that the board must exercise its authorities to rein in the unacceptable state of freight rail service. Current law requires railroads to provide reasonable service at reasonable rates, known as the common carrier obligation. Unfortunately, neither the statute nor the board's regulations speak to a framework by which to bring a reasonable service case. The ambiguous nature of the requirement has meant that railroads have operated with the understanding that the STB is unlikely to wield this authority. It is with this certainty that they've acted to decimate their workforce and ignore the needs of shippers, knowing that there will be zero consequences. We call on the board to finally and forcefully apply requirements of the common carrier obligation in circumstances in which service has been degraded and cannot be considered reasonable. In doing so, the board should consider factors including the impacts of reductions to the workforce or equipment and the maintenance of equipment or other infrastructure. If the board requires more authority or clarity from Congress, it should request it. And I assure you we will work with all of our colleagues to ensure that you have the tools that you need to pursue those outcomes. Today, we look back on the catastrophic loss of thousands of good middle-class jobs in this industry. We look to the present, where rail employees across the country are being forced into impossible circumstances in dangerous conditions every single day. And we look to the future, where the long-term health and viability of the freight network is in serious doubt, as investors seek profit at all costs. It is incumbent upon the board to take aggressive and immediate action to rectify these trends in freight rail service. And rail labor looks forward to being part of that process. Thank you.